yesterday, or listen to the president during his
speech.
Yeah, during the speech, I tend to share in the optimism that the challenge in Niger Delta, can be addressed to the point where the country can now do 2.2 million barrels per day. The other issue, which was controversial, in fact, it's still controversial, is the issue of the exchange rate. The 2016 budget was on 197 naira to the dollar, and we saw what happened.
Yes.
Yes, today we know what the exchange rate is. So the 2017 budget is on 305 naira to the dollar. Now, don't forget again that this 2017 budget proposal is supposed to be anchored on an MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework. The one that was sent to the National Assembly initially had 290 naira to the dollar, and some of us felt it was, unrealistic, really. But now, the one presented by the president, we are seeing 305 naira to the dollar, which, in my view, should be a more realistic figure, because that is the rate at which the central bank at the moment intervenes in the, at the interbank market, the 305 naira to the dollar. So if you take all this together, you could say that yes, the benchmarks are in a way realistic, and if we are able to meet our oil revenue targets, you can be sure that that will impact positively on foreign reserves.
You see, many don't sound very optimistic about this particular budget because they say 2016, looking back at budgetary dispensations, it wasn't really positive. We didn't see significant projects on ground. A lot of people, of course, traced a lot of their issues to hunger, poverty, and the rest of it. 2016 budget was supposed to address a lot of these issues, particularly security and poverty. And of course, that's why we had the 500 billion social intervention program, which I didn't really see how it trickled down to the society.
Yes, I just mentioned one of the reasons is because it didn't even take off in time, the 2016 budget implementation, which is why today they are talking about just around 59% success rates in terms of the capital component.
Yes.
Of course, the recurrent component here is nearly 100%, but the critical one, which of course is expected to jumpstart the economy, is the capital component of the 2016 budget, which is still far from target. The 2016 budget had a provision of 1.5 trillion in terms of capital expenditure. In 2017 proposal, we are seeing 2.24. Trillion. So out of that 1.5 that was, budgeted in 2016, they've only done 750, 800, billion releases. And as I said, because the implementation has fallen short of target, because the social intervention schemes, didn't really take off. It's just now we are hearing they want to take off with a small, group of people. So all of that impacted negatively on poverty levels. The fact that states couldn't pay salaries also impacted on poverty levels. And of course, the fact that we are having weak aggregate demand led to the contraction, and of course also led to the high unemployment rate.
These are still unresolved issues, don't forget.
Yes.
And we've got just a month, or
yes, but
less than a month.
Yes, but this, don't forget, to the 2016 budget is expected to drag till for around for a 12-month period,
yes,
right up to May next year. So, still talking about this 2017 budget, what is of interest to me is the fact that yes, the deficit budget, 2.3 trillion deficit, okay, going to be financed largely by borrowing. But what is of interest to me is that unlike that of 2016 budget, which again, in my view, was a problem. We voted 1.4 trillion for debt servicing, and out of which 1.3 was for domestic debt, to service those domestic debt. But in 2017 budget proposal, yes, we're also going to finance by borrowing, but the borrowing this time is being rebalanced in favor of external debt. So they are talking about getting more, 46% of the borrowing will be from external, which are usually cheaper, than domestic debt.
All right, hold on with your thoughts. I'm going to come back to you on the borrowing plan. We're still with an associate professor, Dr. Uche Uwalike. Join us again after the break on this. Welcome back. We're still with an Associate Professor, Dr. Uche Walike. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you.
We're still on this, the recurrent expenditure right now is taking a large chunk of the budget once again, almost 70%. And again, we see Nigerians, looking at a capital of just merely 30%. How many projects do we hope to achieve with that amount, and how long can we continue with this trend? Do you see a reverse happening?
Yes, 2016 budget had a recurrent expenditure a budget recurrent expenditure of about I think 1.6 trillion.
Yes.
2.6 trillion 2016. That of 2017 proposal, okay, we are now witnessing an increase from 2.6 trillion in 2016 to about 2.9 trillion for 2017 budget proposal. Okay, if you look at the government's public financial reforms, you would expect that the recurrent expenditure, should be coming down, especially when you look at the fact that through the integrated payroll and personal information system, the IPPIS, that the government wage bill, has been reduced, by about 20 billion, we are told, on a monthly basis. So you would think that personnel costs as a component of that recurrent budget should come down. But again, why are we witnessing an increase in the recurrent budget? Yeah. In my view, it is because of the fact that the 2017 budget, must have made provisions for a possible increase in the minimum wage of Nigerians. The minimum wage today is 18,000 naira, which the government, hopes to, improve upon.
Yes.
And that will, of course, come in the next fiscal year. So that must have been factored in the 2017 budget proposal. Okay, if the government, of course, didn't do that, you would expect some crisis, next year from labor and so on. So the increase we are witnessing appear to be justified in the recurrent expenditure. And don't forget again that personnel costs constitutes the bulk of that recurrent expenditure. Yes, in 2016 budget we had about 30% of recurrent, 70-30 recurrent capital ratio. And now, 2017 budget proposal, the ratio capital is about 30.7%. So it is still relatively small. But what is important is implementing that, even the 30% you're providing for.
The capital expenditure, the highest of which we had for power, works and housing, taking over 500 billion, and then leaving other critical sectors like education, health, taking a paltry 50 billion.
Yes,
really.
and of course, I'll be interested in education. When I saw it, I was worried that just 50 billion naira, for education, the capital component would, of course, mean that a lot of institutions are still going to suffer from debt of, infrastructure.
Yes.
The deficit will still be there. It's really not much. But again, there's no, again, saying the fact that infrastructure is key. If we must get out of this recession, okay, government must continue to invest in infrastructure. If we can tackle transport, invest in transport, okay, you can be sure that inflation rate will come down. We need to have roads. We need to have rails. Yes, the private sector can come in, but you need to provide some framework, some enabling environment for the private sector to even come in and partner with you. Look at the case of the power thing you even mentioned. Yes, it has been privatized. We have DISCOs and we have GENCOs, but they are not performing because of myriads of problems. One of which is even the issue we are having in the Niger Delta. The issue of such that they are not even able to generate enough power to distribute. Today, as we speak, we hear they're doing less than 3,000 megawatts of electricity. So that area requires huge investment. Really,
I can only cap it up here saying that, government seriousness really is hinged on the greater implementation of the budget.
Implementation is the key.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walike, for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.